call, please.
Mr. Stahl?
Here.
Mrs. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Conley?
Here.
Mr. Myers?
Here.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
Dr. Chesney?
Here.
Mr. Burchfield?
Here. All right. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda as presented?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Dr. Chesney, supported by Ms. Reed. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? 7-0. Okay, Dr. Gray, Shining Stars.
Okay, we have two different ones tonight. One is for a particular individual and the other is for a group. So we'll start with the individual. We received an email about a week or so ago about this particular nominee, and her name's Colleen Monroe. I'm going to have her come up so we can embarrass her in front of everybody. This is going to drive Colleen crazy because she is about the most behind-the-scenes, hard-working person I've ever met. She's worked for us a number of times at Scranton and in other endeavors that we've had for her. She's actually nominated to receive this Shining Star tonight recognition because she not only works at Scranton, she coaches cross-country and track for us, and she manages to be at literally every single running event to take pictures. She downloads them quicker than, I think I still have pictures of my kids when they were 3 and 4 that I haven't downloaded yet. So she puts them right out there. She gets them all for the parents and gets really a shot of every kid. Her kids have always been involved in our track and running and cross-country programs, but she's there really as a Bulldog supporter in addition to her own kids. And then beyond that, she's a stellar employee for us. And just really cares about kids. She's one of those people that it makes me happy when I run into her hallway. She always asks me how I'm doing, and I think she genuinely cares. So that's great. And she really, really, really loves the kids, loves this district, and just puts forth so much effort for us for no recognition. I know Emily House is going to come up and show just a slight bit of our appreciation for Colleen. And again, this is really out of the box for Colleen because recognition and being in front is not something she loves, but she deserves it to no end. So if you'd come up and shake everybody's hand, congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I'll take the prize. Yep. Yes, thank you.
Thanks again, Colleen.
Thank you.
Our second Shining Star tonight is a group. If that group would step forward, please, real quick. It's our Brighton Youth Baseball and Softball programs. If any of you have driven by Hawkins Elementary School in the recent past, you'll see Field M, which is one of our largest fields out there. Definitely got a makeover this last summer, late spring, early summer. Tonight we have with us Chris Weaver, teacher at Maltby and one of our baseball coaches, Sharon Tuller, who does everything for us, baseball, softball-wise, and Mike Baitinger, who also is invaluable in terms of these programs. They took on that field as a community challenge, and they did dugouts, they did fencing, backstops, roofs, bat holders, helmet holders. We actually had one of our Eagle Scouts, Ryan Giggets, who also did most of the dugout renovations except for the roofing for us. They donated or invested really in kind almost $50,000 to the district to upgrade that field, and they continue to support us time and time and time again. Tireless effort by Chris and Sharon and Mike, and I know Ryan's not here or Charlie, but thank you so much. You guys come on up, please, and receive that. That's all we have.
This brings us to first call of the public this evening. Anyone that wishes to address the board, please step forward to the podium. We ask that you state your name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, that'll close first call of the public, and that will move us into the superintendent report. Dr. Gray.
You know, a couple different things before we get to Gabby. The social emotional therapy learning dog presentation. When we started this program, Karen Story called me about it. I just didn't know it would explode to this level. It's absolutely crazy the amount of contact we get on a weekly basis from not only newscasts but all over the nation. I think I've received calls from Oregon and Nebraska and New York, and just all these different school systems that are really interested in the benefits that we've seen so far with these particular dogs. I've had a number of superintendents from various districts literally begging us to get out of line in terms of the puppies so that they can get a shot at some of these dogs, and it's just been a really great thing. Karen's here tonight to do a short presentation on where we're at in terms of it, because we had some questions at a previous meeting, and we just wanted to update you on where we're at in the process. So Karen?
Thanks. Okay. Not really good with technology, so bear with me. I'm Karen Story, for those of you I don't know or you don't know me. I'm a teacher at Mulvey. I taught special ed for 14 years at Mulvey, and then they asked me to run the RTI program at Mulvey. So I'm the facilitator for the RTI program at Mulvey. Anyway, 9 years ago, I approached Dr. Gray. That's 9, right? You're in 10th year. We had a dog named Ivan at Mulvey, and Ivan was a service dog to Diane Colas, who had Parkinson's disease. And at the time I was teaching special ed, I was actually teaching with Chris Weaver. We were sharing an emotionally impaired classroom at that time, and I was able to see that there was a need for a dog because all of our children wanted to interact with Ivan. Well, Ivan is a service dog, and he was 100% there to help Diane. You know, whether it was, to brace her to get up from the chair, but for whatever reason, he was there for her. So I had called Dr. Gray. I think it was one of his few phone calls that I had called and said, "Hey, I know you're coming in. This crazy idea. What do you think?" And he was like, "Absolutely, run with it." So here we are. I'm just going to really quick. I'll show you guys a real quick video. We have a really great web page, so if anyone check that out, I can give you the. So these are our little brothers that are right now at the trainer. Our little guys that are right now at our trainer. They are expected, they are expected to be with us here in the next month or two. Let me go back. Okay, so anyway, how we got here, we went through that about Diane. We had a population of students afraid to come to school. So that's kind of where we started 9 years ago. So the why, really the biggest thing is creating a safe and comfortable, happy and judgment-free classroom. And these are just some of the things that we've noticed. We don't have any data on them, but we do have some research as far as what we've looked up. Reducing stress and anxiety, improving overall health, increase in attendance. And when we say that, just kids that are struggling to come to school, that are struggling with anxiety, maybe school phobic, we're able to use the dogs in a positive way there. Using them to teach social skills, responsibility, and also we use them in the media center to help improve reading skills. where we're going. So all of the dogs are going to be placed by spring of 2019. Right now, we're searching homes and donations to be placed at the bridge and the intergenerational building, so top spot in the senior center. Updating our staff with training and how dogs can be better utilized at the school, which is obviously always a changing need. And then hopefully at some point, building a social emotional resource guide for the district. So, maybe even looking at our Safe School initiative and having the dogs be a part of that. So we'll get limitations. First question I always get is, what do you do with a kiddo that's allergic to dog hair? We feel like we have that covered. We just ask that the dog does not go into those classrooms that those children are allergic to dog hair or dog dandruff. And we put a picture of the dog on that classroom door so staff knows, oh, that picture means that the kid's allergic, don't go in that classroom. We've also had some limitations as far as fears. We've been able to use this fear in a proactive situation actually as a teaching lesson. We had a kiddo that was anxious about dogs. He was bit as a child. And we worked with the parents on a slow process and plan in order to introduce the dog to the kid. And it did take a while. It took a good year. And we just started out small. Maybe it was that the kids saw, Caesar, down the hallway. And we were slowly able to introduce that. And by the end of the year, that child was able to pet that dog and he felt safe. So we feel like using those limitations as a proactive situation has worked in our favor. Okay, so here's our path. We have Caesar, who's at the high school, and he lives with Jody Reneker and her family. He is ready to retire. He's there. Duncan is at Mulpey. He's 2 years old. He was going to maybe attend tonight, but I'm not sure. But he lives with Michelle Prayer. The nice thing about Duncan as well is he's part of the Project Unified team, which is neat. So after school, he spends a lot of time with those kiddos. Scout was just placed at Hawkins, and he is living with Rochelle Staworski. And then we have Shadow, Ford, Buckley, and Oliver, and they are all brothers. They all came from the same litter, and they are all going to be placed here within the next month. So I'm going to be rolling out 4 dogs within the next 1 to 2 months. Just working with our trainer and working with admin in order to place these dogs, and with staff. We received a donation of a dog named Allie, and she is going to go to the high school. She's our first female dog, a black lab. She will be placed spring of 2019. Gavin just sent home applications to staff in order to apply to be a host home for our dogs. And then we have another dog that was donated. I actually received this donation on Friday. We received 2 donations of Australian Shepherds. One of them we're hoping will go to the high school counseling department. Again, the host home is to be determined. And then we also have another donation. These all come from the same breeder, just so you guys know, of Izzo, and he will be district-wide. And that host home is to be determined yet. And when we say district-wide, just an example, last year we had lost a kiddo over at Corning Elementary, and my son was in that classroom. And I had called Dr. Gray and Marcy Maloney, our special ed director, and said, hey, we've got Duncan. Let's see if we can get Duncan over there and help those kiddos cope with the grief and the loss of this child. Absolutely. So we took Duncan over there every single day, and I have a video for you to show you the kids' response to that, and I'll come back to that. So local and national recognition, we have had, as Dr. Gray said, we have had a ton of phone calls, anywhere from Canada, Oregon, all over. How did you do this? How did you do this? We had NPR come out last fall, but these all click. I can send this to you guys if you ever want to see the recognition that the media has given us. We have partnered with Walled Lake. Walled Lake had asked myself and Dr. Gray to come to their board meeting and speak last spring, and we were able to do that, and they approved 2 dogs. So actually 2 of their dogs are at the trainer as well. but those are districts that have partnered with us as well. Okay, so here's just some testimonials. This was from a staff member that last Memorial Weekend, we lost a beautiful soul here within our Brighton Area Schools family. This young man was involved in the band program. I had taken Duncan to the high school in Michelle Prayer each day, having the kids deal with this loss. And I will tell you, walking in the first day, you know, just seeing the sadness and feeling all of that, by the end of the time that Duncan was there, when the teacher felt like, okay, we're good, we started to see just that little smile. So this was just a testimonial. I felt was just so impactful. You know, here you have these high school kids using these dogs. And then I just want to show you guys a real quick video. This is kiddos from a second grade class from last year. Do any of you know how to work sound? Does it go through the speakers here? Sorry, guys. Your power.
Can't you just put the microphone down by the sound like computer?
I can hear it from here. Okay. Well, that's okay. So this was just a testimonial from the kids on how they felt having Duncan in the classroom. We'll just keep on rolling here. So again, just another testimonial. Duncan spends Tuesdays over at Horning just to help with those kiddos over there. You know, just go through these real quick. You know, a lot of feeling lonely, the social workers using them, the counselors. They have a little runner. And I will tell you, I got to watch this firsthand. He was bolting out of the building, and we said, "Hey, Duncan's here," and he just stopped in his tracks and came back into the building. So that was amazing to see with that kiddo. But these are just pictures of our dogs. Now, again, just giving some good PR to Brighton Area Schools. That's our trainer, Fred. And that was our latest ABC News came on Friday to interview. So yeah, and then here's our sponsors on our webpage. Make sure we give them the recognition, not only on the vest, as Duncan is wearing, but on our webpage, and anytime we can plug in for our sponsors. Yeah, do you guys have any questions? Yeah?
So these dogs are Brighton Area Schools property, is that right?
Yes, Brighton Area Schools owns these dogs, yep.
Okay. And then I guess my question is, obviously they're allowed to be in the schools, to interact with the kids. What happens if a staff person has a dog that is a therapy dog, I guess, or they need to have some, because I know there's one in the school,
Two at the high school, actually.
He's a history teacher or something, but again, I mean, he has a dog. Do they interact amongst themselves, or do they?
Yeah, so I
Is
know
that a
we
good thing, a
have
bad thing?
we have a service dog in high school
Yeah.
with one of our staff members, and that service dog has been trained just to be with that person.
Mhm.
Our dogs have been trained to ignore, as those dogs have been trained to ignore.
I see.
So we haven't had the issue. There is a service dog over at Hawkins as well with a kiddo, and we have been slowly integrating that process. The service dog struggled a little bit, you know, like, oh, there's another dog, you know, pulling the alpha male. So we were able to work with our trainer, we went to Friday with our trainer, and then the other side's trainer, and it seemed to work okay. Things are going, you know, as smooth as we
So
expected.
these dogs go through a long training period.
Yeah, service dogs are, yeah, they're, that training is very intense, because they are trained 100% to an individual, where our dogs are trained for all people.
Yeah, okay.
So, so yeah, we've had a positive experience with that, and, you know, I definitely advocate that staff can use our dogs as well, so that's been,
Okay,
so yeah.
thanks.
I just want to say that, I mean, I think that this therapy dog program really represents a confluence of so many things that are really great about this district. I mean, as you pointed out, I mean, there was no roadmap as to how to establish, you know, this type of a program. And so, you know, we need visionaries in our district to be able to identify something like this. We need to have an administration that embraces that vision and does whatever it can to support it. And, you know, many people probably don't realize, but just because of the nature of what we're dealing with, it requires funding through community donations. And, you know, we're very fortunate that we have a community that, you know, recognizes what a great program this is, financially supports it, and really gives, you know, our students a tremendous opportunity and social emotional support that, you know, wouldn't otherwise exist if all of those factors didn't exist at the same time. So, you know, thank you for your vision, and I mean, I think it's just amazing, you know, what this does to our school, and, you know, how important promoting, you know, those type of, you know, visionary opportunities are to, you know, really keeping Brighton ahead of everyone else in, you know, really, you know, leading the way in coming up with these type of initiatives and programs that really truly make a difference. So, you know, thank you again, Ms. Story.
And I think that, you know, the greatest piece about this, it truly is the community behind these dogs, along with everybody within Brighton area schools. Not very often do we have a business that will say no, you know, just the impact. So, yeah, it's cool. You know, it's cool to see, and you know, really represents what Brighton area schools is about, the community, and that we're all part of this, you know, this family. So, any other questions?
And Ms. Story, thanks for all that you do. It's all that you have done and all that
Oh, thank you.
continue to do, so thank you. What's the significance of the vest? Like when the dog is wearing the vest, that it works on me.
Yeah, so, and John could attest to this. This is John Crayer. Duncan lives with the Crayer family. I will tell you, we have learned early on, even with Caesar, when they put that vest on, they know it's time to work. Like, hey, we're not going to horse around. Let's just settle in. When you take that vest off, and John can tell you, he acts like, you know, a pet at home. Runs with Bailey.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about the vest for the community, so I feel like this is the give back for the community as well, not only on the student success, but anybody that donates towards the dog, their name, business name is put on it. So Duncan is solely Duncan Chiropractic, so the other side is Duncan Chiropractic, and then Scruffy the Fluffy does all of the grooming. So, you know, it's like that stop sign advertisement, you know? You're at the light, you look up and you see, you know, a sign, but that's kind of with our dogs. Like, everybody stops us in town. Hey, what's this all about? What's this dog all about? So it's a good opportunity for us to plug, you know, the business name in for the community. But yeah, the vest, we ask that the vest be on during the day and then at any community events.
And the dog feels the constriction of
Yeah.
whatever, it knows that means that it's
Time to
working.
work.
When it comes off, then it
They run like wild.
Yeah.
It's a 180-degree different dog. It's crazy.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Caesar, I mean,
He doesn't
if that's
run.
not, he'll run away. He'll jump in the pond, so yeah. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Great job.
Thanks.
Our second part of superintendent report tonight is Gabby Myers, and I'm sure she has a lot of stuff to tell about homecoming. So, Gabby?
Thank you, Dr. Gray. So, as you all know, last week was our homecoming. It was very successful. I know personally from experiencing at the high school, all the students were very enthusiastic. They had a tremendous amount of school spirit, and that also translated into the parade and game, which was really exciting to see. I also heard that the elementary schools and middle schools had a great time, which was very exciting to hear. I wanted to thank the administrators for helping out with all the homecoming activities, the executive board for putting on the parade and the actual homecoming dance. And I also wanted to thank the school board for participating in the parade. It's a great community event. Many people gather, come to see it, and it really brings the community together, so thank you for that. I wanted to touch on something called Senior Serve that is happening at the high school. So in a couple of weeks, about 40 of us seniors will go to Detroit, where we will volunteer and serve for others. It'll be for a couple of days, and it's a great way to make a difference, not only in our community, but in the communities in southeastern Michigan. And it's just another way to show how Brighton is amazing, and it's just making a difference all around. And then lastly, we have our ESPN game, October 19th, to celebrate the Project Unify Club. It will be at the high school at 10:07 in the gymnasium. We invite you all to come there. There will be government speakers, there will be ESPN speakers, and there will be a shortened version of one of the games that we will play, the basketball games that we will play throughout the season. We are very looking forward to it, and it's going to be a good time. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us into for action. Item A, regular meeting minutes of September 10th, 2018. Do we have a motion to approve? So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Trombley, supported by Mr. Conley. Any discussion?
Actually, the September 24th minutes. I think I have it wrong in the agenda. Should be the 24th.
Oh, it says September
Yes.
10th.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So motion still on the table? Yep. Supported. Okay, so it's September 24th, 2018. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes 7-0. Item B, donation social emotional therapy learning dogs. Dr. Gray.
Sticking with the trend tonight, we'd like to accept with great appreciation a donation of $1,500 from Dr. David and Mrs. Jean Chesney for our next therapy dog.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Chesney, supported by Mr. Stahl. Any discussion?
Just thank you.
All those in favor of supporting and with great gratitude to Dr. Chesney and his wife Jean, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes 7-0. Again, thank you. Item C, leave of absence request. Dr. Gray.
We recommend that you approve the unpaid leave of absence request from Lisa Johnson, a grade 9-12 special education teacher with 11 years of service to the district. She's requesting this unpaid leave of absence for 18-19.
Do we have a motion to approve? So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Myers, supported by Ms. Reed. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passes 7-0. That will close for action and move us into for future action. Item A, donations, social emotional therapy learning dogs. Dr. Gray.
Again, it's getting more and more fun to say this each time, but we'd like you in a couple weeks to accept the donation of $2,000 from the Forcier family, and that again falls in line with our board policy 7230. You saw up on the screen tonight in the video what will be the result of those, and we're excited about this as we move forward.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, item B, remote participation bylaw. Dr. Gray.
This has been a discussion topic that we've discussed several times now. We put it through committee as well. We have a recommendation in front of you tonight. The bolded language is obviously optional, and really at the end on page 15 is where you see the actual language that pertains to the rules of order with participation from a remote location. What you had discussed previously was some parameters you may set around those in relation to voting and those types of things. So this is the actual policy, and then you can put the parameters around it as we move forward.
So is this actually a change in board policy?
Mm-hmm. The optional piece that you would see on page 15 where it says participation from a remote location shall not occur unless a member seeks to participate is prevented from attending the meeting by circumstances beyond the control of that member. Such circumstances shall include but not be limited to natural disasters, temporary physical incapacity, and no more than one or two members of the board may participate from a remote location via electronic means at the same meeting. This was the actual optional language that we had provided to us from our policymakers at Neola. And you guys were going to take a look at this and see if you wanted to make any adjustments to it prior to taking a vote on it for action.
But is that all that's required to adopt board policy and thus voting, or are there other requirements that we need to follow through?
None that I'm aware of.
Because I know when it's a change in board policy, we have to go out and have the public and other people involved in it.
You've changed a lot of board policy without the public.
So
You're talking about a hearing?
What's
A
that?
public hearing? So on certain things, we're required to have a public hearing,
Okay.
like change to the health curriculum,
No,
Maria's thing as well.
and I'll use an example, and it was back when it was talked about in naming of facilities. We're putting people's names on a board policy that strictly dictated what happened. But in order to change that, there was a process that had to be met, or a criteria that had to be met in order to, besides just the new language, to follow through in order to be able to change that board policy.
I don't remember that.
Okay.
I remember the conversation about the naming of a facility, which we have board policy on.
That's correct.
And I don't remember, was it the time when you were on the board? Was it
Yes.
the last
Nope.
7-ish years?
It was.
Yeah, I don't remember a public hearing based on that.
I'm not saying a public hearing, but there was some criteria that had to follow through in order to adopt it as board policy.
I don't remember that. I
I'm
think,
just asking the question.
yeah, I don't remember that. I remember there being criteria to name a facility. So maybe that's where we're getting the
Maybe that's
confusion.
what it is.
So to name a facility, and this is just off the top of my head, but remembering there had to be somebody submitted, and then there was step 2, and you go to step
Yes.
2, and then there was that. This discussion came about when there was a fundraising, I think, request from a former board member about naming the facility after a vendor, like a Pepsi or something like that. And what we did at the board meeting, if I remember correctly, is we went through the actual policy and talked about the steps that you'd have to take.
Maybe that's what it
And
is.
there's actually, if I remember correctly, it's 1 month or 6 months or something like that. There had to be a waiting period before a facility got named, because many times a facility naming idea comes after a grief-filled event.
Okay.
And they wanted people not to make the decision based on the grief or based on emotion, and so there was a process in place that people had to follow and timelines that had to be met if there was an idea that something wanted to be named after somebody. That's what I remember in relation to that.
Okay.
So the question, follow-up question that I have on this related to participating in the meeting is we had a question about what happens in terms of the closed session portion of the meeting. And are we going to have separate optional wording associated with that? Or can somebody participate fully in a closed session part of the meeting remotely?
I emailed that information. I was looking for that email. I thought I emailed everybody.
It was permissible.
It is permissible.
Well, in the notary public, wasn't it? Didn't you have to have it notarized that you were in
It's
the
on-
room by yourself
yeah.
and a couple other criteria?
Page 16.
If you look on page 16, that's where we have it.
How do we get that? How does that happen? Bring it to the next board meeting, like, just like, no, what?
I mean, my recollection is that we talked about the various, let me back up. My recollection is, I think it was understood at the last meeting that the current state of affairs is participating in meetings via electronic means is permissible under state law. We didn't have a specific policy that overlaid that state law or dictated the circumstances under which we may or may not be able to participate. The discussion then led to, well, if we're going to look at it, we should look at the options, but are we even going to look at those options in the context of a closed session meeting? And I know I went on record saying, my personal opinion is we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't, regardless of what state law may or may not allow, and regardless of where things end up in the discussion of this policy, I personally don't, I wouldn't support electronic communication for a closed session meeting, so we don't, as far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't go down that road. And that we should focus on, if we're going to expand or further articulate what our own policy is vis-a-vis electronic participation in open public meetings, then that's what this is going to deal with. So I don't know if that's changed since then as far as anyone's.
No, I think you stated perfectly what the conversation revolved around at the last meeting. I think to further what Mr. Myers is saying, we probably should get in writing on this policy just that indeed we as a board have agreed that granted we haven't voted tonight, we're not voting tonight on this, but I think this document from a policy standpoint needs to reflect the fact that we do not want to have the ability for somebody to vote in closed session without physically being present.
To vote or to participate?
To participate.
Or participate in or vote.
Well, we don't vote in closed session.
Well, that's a good point. So to participate. Right.
We can add that. We'll clarify. Anything else you'd like us to clarify?
One question I have is on page 13. It has some optional language there that I'm not clear where that sitting there is existing and it never was.
No.
Is that a new recommendation from Neola?
What they said is in relation to this policy at the top, the MASB note, many boards have elected to use this language. It's optional language that this board has never chosen. So the board shall be governed by rules, procedure, and adopted by the board and its bylaws. The board may use Robert's Rules of Orders and non-binding guidelines in the conduct of its meetings, probably reaffirming some of the optional language in terms of that. Probably strengthens it. Typically when they give us recommendations to add optional language, it's really just to strengthen it, because they don't recommend optional language very often, because general language typically works better for a board policy because all of the situations are so varied that we deal with that general guidelines help us. But this doesn't really give me any pause.
To keep it or eliminate it?
Either way. I know it's an optional piece that they say would possibly help, so I would say check it if it's going to strengthen our language and you want to move towards allowing the ability to have people publicly participate. But we can clarify that as well before the next meeting if you'd like.
I'm just reading it, I mean, we're basically, if we were to choose this, we were either choosing whether or not Robert's rules will be binding or not. Is that really the question between these two? I mean, you've got two attorneys here, probably.
I'm not speaking as an attorney, but just looking at this, I see there are a couple of different questions for us to consider.
So there's the question on page 13, which is the optional language about Robert's rules. And that looks to me like we as a board would either be reaffirming that we always use Robert's Rules of Order to conduct our business, or the optional language provides us the opportunity to say that we have rules in our board bylaws, and we may use Robert's Rules of Order, but Robert's Rules are not binding. And I think the way we have always conducted business is by Robert's Rules. So unless we want to change that, we don't need the optional language that's on page 13, but that doesn't have anything to do with appearing electronically. That new text is on page 14 and 15. And so on 14, it's talking about what constitutes a quorum, and there's some language in there about votes by roll call and requests to participate from a remote location. I like the idea that if we are, if one of our members is appearing remotely, we do votes by roll call so that it's clear that the participant on the phone or on the video conference has actually registered their vote. I'm a little uncomfortable with the last part, though, that requests to participate have to be approved by the board president, and the decision of the board president is final. I can see some advantages to having that from an organization structure, and certainly if we want to keep the language that's on 15, where we are setting strict parameters for when you can appear electronically, that we want someone to be the arbiter of whether those parameters have been met. So there's an argument in favor of having our board president do that, but at the same time, I'm a little uncomfortable with appointing one of our members to determine which of us is allowed to appear at the meeting. I don't think that's the way we normally conduct business, and this just kind of seems to stick out to me. So it strikes me as something that we would want to reconsider and potentially change, or at least I would. In this current form, I don't think I would support it.
Wording to the effect of notification shall be made to the president rather than permission granted from the president.
That would make more sense. That would be, in my opinion, that would be more in line with the way we normally conduct our business, yeah.
Well, I think it goes to, I think on page 15, the second optional, no more than one or two members of the board may participate from a remote location via electronic means at the same meeting. I think that ties
That's true.
together with what you're bringing up, and I agree with, I like the language change that Dr. Chesney just presented, but tying it then to, because we don't want a situation where there's three members that aren't here,
Right.
all from remote location.
It could be as simple as you can appear remotely if you're one of the first two that requests that for that meeting. And if we end up with three, then we don't have quorum for the meeting?
Well, the person just doesn't show up and the meeting goes on.
That's true. So it sounds like we probably need one more week for future action before we quite get this into final form. Is this still with the policy committee then to make revisions?
I think it just be struck.
I can just make an edit and send it.
Sure.
Okay.
And then you've got the,
So just to be clear, when I update this, I will not be selecting the optional language from page 13, so we'll strike that. And then on page 14 at the bottom, I'll put notification from a board member related to a remote location shall be made to the board president
Prior to the meeting.
prior to the meeting. Okay. And then on the last page, on 15, am I keeping the last optional of no more than two?
Sure.
Okay, so circle two. Okay. All right, I'll.
Well, the only,
Go ahead, I think you're going to say something. Go ahead.
the question I have is, so going to the first optional paragraph on page 15, it says, participation shall not occur unless a member who seeks to participate is prevented from attending by circumstances beyond the control of the member. Such circumstances shall include but not be limited to natural disasters or temporary physical incapacity.
So should I strike that whole first paragraph?
Well,
Because the previous paragraph kind of says you just let the board president.
I mean, I think that that begs the, I mean, I think that's gonna open up a whole other can of worms of who's deciding what is beyond the control of the member. I mean, the reality is that there's never, at least since I've been on this board, there's never been an abuse by anybody. People have participated. Most often it's because of somebody had to be somewhere for work. I was at the state final ski race and somebody drilled a hole in the timing mechanism and the race got delayed 6 hours in northern Michigan, so I had to make it back. I mean, is that beyond my control? I mean,
Natural disaster.
right, yeah. Whoever was holding the drill created a natural disaster. But I guess my concern is, well, first of all, I guess the question we have to ask, are we going to define, are there parameters under which that person should or should not be able to participate remotely? And if we are, I think we got to do a little more work than what's on this particular page. I think we have to be more practical about what the realities of why people have to be away at certain times, and sometimes it isn't something that's within their control from an employment standpoint. So.
My position, again, I'm not going to change. I don't think out of all these years, we didn't have the option available. The district has done well without it. And if the board member can't make it, they can't make it. And again, this is my position. It's new this year, and out of all the years that we've known, we never had it before. And again, the situation this year, I totally supported it 100%. But again, going into this even deeper and looking at the legal and all the different things, is it something we need to spend time on or not? I believe board members should be present and decisions made. I believe in the face-to-face interaction with the board. That's my personal opinion.
Saying that, I don't think you've missed a meeting yet, maybe.
In 8 years, I haven't missed one meeting.
That's what I thought.
I left one and came back. Momentary break. Thanks, Bill, for recognizing that. I appreciate that.
So, just to clarify, so that Dr. Gray can clean this up for the next meeting, is there interest or agreement or further discussion needed on top of page 15 for the first optional?
The only thing I would see is ended after the first sentence. So participation from a remote location shall not occur unless the member who seeks to participate is prevented from attending the meeting by circumstances beyond the control of the member.
The only concern I have with beyond the control of the member, it sounds so extreme from, I mean, if you're traveling for work, it's...
Yeah, it's within my control to travel for work or not. So that,
Well, I mean, it is, because I can tell my employer I'm not going. I may not have a job anymore, but I can. It is within my control.
I think that whole paragraph.
And that's, I mean, I'm thinking about the times that I participated remotely this summer when I was out of town with my husband in the hospital. It was within my control to be there or to be here.
Right, I mean, I agree. I personally, I think Dr. Chesney would just, I overheard him, I would agree with what he just said. I think we should take out that entire paragraph, quite frankly. I mean, if some future board, down the road, there's a member that's abusing a privilege and clearly just, phoning it in, pardon the pun. The board can, obviously, we can revisit the policy at that point and say, okay, we got a problem, we need to change our policy. I mean, this paragraph is a solution looking for a problem, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So I think we should just strike it, that's my.
I had asked Dr. Gray to do a little survey, I think, of other districts who have a phone policy, I recall. Get a chance to do that.
Yep. So just in our local area, that's not where we originally asked. They've done it, this one is from Howell. They've done it a couple of times where they would not have had a quorum otherwise. They did run it by the attorneys first, and they didn't indicate there are any issues with that. They don't have it, I ironclad in policy like we're looking to possibly identify, and they do it with a table, mic, and a phone, just like we do. In Heartland, they've had members participate via phone, but they have not had them vote unless they were physically present. They have attached a couple of pages from the Open Meetings Guides that they followed. So, again, with 5 districts, really, it's whatever they choose to do, and it pretty much depends on the members they have. I have had another local district reach out because they just had, I think, a newer member that does travel quite a bit, and so they're exploring this again because of traffic.
Thank you.
And then just the last piece to this is the closed session language to add.
That we will not conduct, or
Correct.
we will not permit remote appearance of closed session.
Is that,
That'll change your affidavit as well. So
Yeah,
first
we
part,
won't need it.
you don't need it at all.
so Dr. Gray, you got it? Good? Good. All right. Anything else on this topic? Great, thank you. That brings us to item C, Junior ROTC program. Dr. Gray.
I didn't put this one in.
Oh, this is Mr. Conway, sorry.
Thank you. I have a handout which I just, there were questions about how credit works with ROTC programs. And this document is dated September 16, 2015. We have a guest this evening, Colonel George Pettigrew, is here in the audience tonight in case we have questions regarding that, because I recall coming up with not sure how we could apply course credit, and this document clarifies that. I'd like to start to put that in record. Put that in our meeting record.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It talks about the courses, the course of study, and how credit is been offered to our students. And other thing that he's here for tonight, the board is new to some board members, it's virtually new to me as well. But I 100% trust our system on this. And if people have questions for him tonight, I'd like to have our colonel step up and take questions. He's here to answer any questions you might have, and he has some information he can prepare to fill us in.
Anyone have any questions for me?
What's that now?
Bless you.
Just to echo what Mr. Conley's already said, that I'm here essentially to provide support, verbal support, and organizational support for your program here. And you've already been well versed on what the program's all about, the benefits are, and I just want to come here tonight to reassure you that the fact that I can bring forth all the entire resources of my office to assist you in the implementation and the establishment of your program here in the Brighton Public Schools. It's an awesome undertaking. I speak from experience. I was in JROTC when I was a young boy. And I had no idea I was going to be one day teaching JROTC or administering over a state of Michigan in your JROTC program. But it is truly a wonderful program for young people. I can't say enough about it, definitely so. So I'll entertain any questions you might have regarding the program. Yes?
Again, first and foremost, Colonel, thank you for your service. Certainly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I guess I'd like to ask, moving forward, that are you still active in this program and in teaching and that kind of thing?
I am. I'm the Director of Military Science for Michigan's JROTC program.
Okay,
So I help administer, I help provide logistical support, training, and all forms of support for the program for the units in the immediate vicinity of Detroit, Michigan, and also outlying schools as well. So
Okay.
you would come under my purview in the event you needed assistance from us, particularly in the establishment of the program. That's what I would do. That's what I would be doing. In most cases, you would need some training for your staff. I would also also assist, if not take on the lion's share of the recruiting for your organization, because I recruit for the entire state of Michigan and the various organizations there. So whatever you would need in order to bring this here concept to fruition, that would be me and my.
So you're the go-to guy.
I am.
At this point in time, at least for us at this time, right?
Right, sir.
So give me an idea of, if we as a board would decide that we'd like to make a, 3-year commitment to this to see how it plays out. Is that sufficient time for something like this, or would you recommend more or less? How do you see this moving forward?
I would recommend nothing less than 5 years.
Okay.
And basically because of the fact that for 3 years, your instructors, unless you receive some truly seasoned instructors, it's going to take them at least 3 years just to get themselves acclimated to the entire teaching style, to the curriculum, getting them familiar with the students. After that 3rd year, there's a gelling that takes place between the instructors and the students, and they understand more succinctly what the program is really all about. And then in that 4th year, you get into the real synergy of what the program is really all, what it can offer not just the school, but to the community as well. So within 5 years, you've acquired a degree of proficiency on the part of the instructors. The community has then embraced what it's all about because they've seen it on an annual basis from the service-oriented perspective, from all the interactions between the students and the parents and the community. They then see what the program really has to offer. So it takes about 3 to 5 years to really get a foothold within the community and to get some kind of return on your investment.
And then these instructors would be on our payroll, correct?
Be on your payroll, correct.
On our payroll. And then I'm assuming you would be the person to help us. Obviously, numbers would be one way to see if the program's working. But I'm assuming you would also help us evaluate, or there's other means of evaluation as well to see if the program is working.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming you'd be part of that to help us.
Intimately involved.
Okay.
Intimately involved. Yeah, we on an annual basis, we do what's called a program of accreditation, which is required under our mandate to ensure that all our programs measure up, meet certain regimented standards for continuance of the program for JRTC. Yes, sir.
Yeah, 3 quick questions. First, I read through this document today. There's a minimum of 100 participants. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay, and if that's to be a recognized program. If you fall beneath that, let's say you have 95 one year, what's the difference between having 102 and 95? Is there some kind of distinction with the people monitoring the program? Is that part of the evaluation process that you do?
The breaking point is 75. If you have over 75, I can still work with that.
Okay.
Anything less than 75, I'll submit the program for recertification, essentially. If you're in the 90s and 95s,
Okay.
I can work with that. That's an in-house type.
When you decertify, does that mean we're not able to offer it anymore?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Second, your instructors, because they're instructing in the building, are they typically part of the teaching staff? Are they subcontractors? How does that work?
Teaching staff.
Okay, so they'd be a unionized member.
Absolutely.
In terms of that. Okay, and then third, in terms of the awarding credit, does the administrator actually award the credit and not the teacher for the highly qualified piece of that? Or does the teacher actually give the grade? Because the one, I can understand the PE credit pretty easily because we do that with marching band and some other things when they've met the minimum requirement. Health has some pieces that come along with it from the sexually transmitted disease portion and other mandates that we have from the state. How do they award credit for health? I don't understand that part, or is it just something I should look into a little further?
Health is embedded in the overall program.
Okay.
It's embedded in there. It has separate modules, certain curriculum modules that they must be able to meet.
Okay.
And if you look deeply into the program, you'll see that there's a synergy. There's a connection between what we offer for health and what the vast majority of all.
Okay. So it probably meets the minimum standards of the health.
They do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question. As we're considering starting up the program, what do you see as the most important steps or the most important things for us to consider from a startup standpoint, and what have you seen to be the biggest stumbling blocks for programs that are just trying to get off the ground?
Just getting the programs off the ground, essentially you're talking about getting all the curriculum items in-house, getting everything there, getting your instructors trained up appropriately so that they can navigate all the various components of the curriculum and everything. And then just making sure that you have all the ancillary extracurricular events in place so that you can promote those items. That's what's going to bring you the lion's share of the support from the community. When the parents see their kids engaging in not just the curriculum from an academic perspective, but also from the extracurricular perspective as well.
So are you thinking, is that color guard marching in the parade kind of?
That's the visual.
Okay.
That's the visual the community will see. But they won't necessarily see the students participating in debates, for constitutional debates. They won't necessarily see our students participating in a marksmanship program that has far-reaching impact beyond Michigan, connecting with Alabama and Colorado Springs and the national competitions. So those are the other things that, they're behind the scene, but they bring more depth, more real greatness to the program as well.
I'm not sure if my question was directed to you, sir, but how do we find out if we're going to have a participation? Because we can't put this in the books and then hope we get enough participants. How is that done? What would you suggest? We put out?
Do a little survey.
Do a survey.
The vast majority of people, they know what JROTC is all about.
Right.
And I'm not being very generic about it, but just the fact that most families, someone in their family has been in a JROTC program. And then seeing the JROTC program also available on the television for competitions, that can be very helpful. I can also provide you some videos that you can publicize on either regular basis or irregular basis to kind of like put the word out there, the visuals about what the program really has to offer. I can even come back to some of your board meetings for the school board and provide a PowerPoint or whatever I need to do. But it's just going to take a good survey, see how many kids will be engaging in it, and at the same time, if you could somehow gain some kind of perspective on the level of patriotism within the community. Usually those communities have a high level of patriotism, have a tremendous amount of support for the JROTC program. They really do. If there's a large population of veterans in the community, tremendous support for the program. If there's a lot of needs in the community where students can have a tremendous impact in terms of the elderly, in terms of young people, in terms of after-school activities, they do well. Communities like that. Yes, sir.
A similar question that I had, Colonel, is just related to how do we, what would be your suggestions to how we best figure out where and how it fits into our existing curriculum? That we want to make sure, classes that we have, how it fits, what classes we have that complement, what classes that we have that be different in terms of, the amount of teachers, what's the best way of getting good information related to our curriculum?
I would say that first of all, get your teachers on board. Make sure they fully embrace and fully support the program. If you do that, you don't want to go into it backwards. You want to make sure that they're embracing the program up front. In which case, all you need to do at that point is just make sure you have a place, a set place within the work day, within the school day, where you can carve out some space in the school. You do need at least 2 classrooms for that, or extremely large classrooms that can be divided by some sort of partition, preferably 2 classrooms. Because you have 4 different elements. You have let 1, let 2, let 3, and let 4. Because let 1 being, of course, the most newly inducted members into the program. The let 4 being the most experienced. So you need those kind of things in place to assist with that.
So would the program, would you or a representative of the program be willing to work with our curriculum committee and trying to figure out how that
Absolutely
does fit in and how the course
This is my passion.
Very good.
All right.
Also, Colonel, I'd like to say thank you for your service.
Thank you for your support, sir.
I have a question. I understand you oversee through the Michigan JROTC programs, and you've identified being the Director of Military Science. And we've been presented with different options through, the Navy, the different branches of the military.
Absolutely.
And based upon the presentation that was made a month or so ago, I understand there are some differences in the startup of each program depending on which branch is pursued. Just from your perspective, do you see any differences that stand out in terms of how to integrate one versus the other? And I'm not trying to get you to commit to say, well, Navy's better than the Air Force, or just in terms of looking at the, if there are, from an operational standpoint and an integration of the program standpoint between one versus the other. I mean, is there anything you can share with the board that might help us, as we look at these options?
I don't know of anything in particular. The curriculum for all the different services is pretty much the same. Some minor nuances between the two, of course, we'll be aware of a different uniform. They march a little differently than we do, but other than that, nothing really stands out in my mind.
Okay. And as a follow-up question, so, there's been discussion about, the numbers and, how that would translate into a potential decertification if the numbers ultimately fell below the minimum threshold, and, some of the challenges or the hurdles to getting the program off the ground. I mean, the districts that have committed to doing this, in your tenure with the Michigan JROTC programs, I mean, are you aware of any or many schools that have implemented the program and once having done that ultimately had to be decertified? And if so, is there a common thread or common threads that ultimately led to that decertification?
The only thing that's impacted dramatically the decertification of programs is if there's been some type of diminishing of the population within a geographical area, which of course would cause a reduction in the numbers in the student body. But if you have a relatively stable community, and you have a regular, classroom attendance as far as your students are concerned, you won't have a problem. And I can tell you now, based on what I've heard tonight, the young lady over there, and how forward-thinking your young people are, and how engaging they are within the surrounding community, that's the kind of mindset, those are the kind of individuals we're looking for to be a part of the program. We're really about service to the community. We're about teaching young people how to be better citizens. So all of that mingled in with what she was doing with the schools here, it's a perfect partnership, from what I can see, to make sure it survives for the duration.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Colonel, give us, you're a full-bird colonel, correct?
Correct, sir.
What does that mean in the military service world?
A full colonel, as they say, I usually don't say full colonel, but it's essentially I'm responsible for 3,000 to 5,000 people, in my brigade. I have a responsibility to ensure the safety, welfare, and the continued service of those individuals, their families, to ensure they are trained properly, equipped, and provided the ultimate amount of enduring presence that we need around the world today.
I'd like to thank you for your service to our country and making time tonight to come and see a humble board to get information. And I think I had a couple ideas. The board has brought up some very good questions, I feel. And like for us, the 0 hour and the 7th hour opportunity and time outside of full curriculum. Our students are booked solid. A lot of them are booked so heavy, I can't believe some of what they're booked with doing. Yeah, they're up here. How many AP classes do you have?
5.
5 AP classes. Advanced placement, which will be your career college credit, leaving as a senior. Quite an undertaking. So my thought, though, for our board and for us to think about is how to take the offer that you have, which is, if you look at this, it fits. It talks about rationale. We have this right here. We have it spelled out for us. 4-year leadership and character development program. This is from the Detroit Public School System that you sent us a copy of. And it talks about, we don't need to go much further than that. It talks about exactly what we're looking for in Brighton area schools. So that, I believe, will move it to the next step with the school. And I appreciate all the board members' concerns about whether it'll fill or not fill. But I can share with you that in the last 8 years, that every program that we've looked into, and I've actually brought forward with other support from the board, are full to capacity and they're waiting, most of them have waiting room to get in. Is that correct, Dr. Gray? Every program. Your program meets that same criteria for me to bring forward. My father was in the U.S. Army Air Corps, and I read something on a card, and I didn't get to bring it tonight. We were all getting rushed around and talked about citizenship and what it meant to be a member of that group. It talked about being a good citizen, didn't put you above any citizen. Remember the wording, and I'll bring it back to the board and read it to them. It's a really, it's well written. It was written back in the 40s, I'm sure. But anyhow, I'm very proud of the service. And I think that, and my doctor, Dr. Russ Morrell, had told me a story about his son. And his son was at Brighton High School. Army recruiter came in, and our board, I think, was service. And he wasn't sure what direction. Good student. And the Army offered him an opportunity to go in and train as a nurse. And from what I understand now, he's trained as a doctor, funded by the U.S. Army. And no student loans, agreed to the commitment to our country, and great opportunities. And I think that goes back to what our board has done historically also, is bringing opportunities to students. So I would like, again, to see our board put this on for action, if you can believe it, and then work through the details.
I'd like to add one more thing to
Yes, sir.
to the list, and that is, if the board decides to move forward with this here concept, the JROTC program, I would also at that point see with putting Brighton schools on what's called the Order of Merit list with Cadet Command. Those schools that rise to that list, eventually their name comes up to the top. And you'll be, at that point, you'll be eligible for a cost share in the military. Additionally, of course, all the costs coming from you because we aren't expanding any more new units. But once your name comes up on the Order of Merit list, you're eligible for a cost share with those. You just have the cost of the programs.
I believe that this management team, our group, the administrators, as well as the board, you will be very pleasantly surprised, but maybe not surprised. You'll see if this board decides to go forward on this type of action, you'll be proud of the students that you'll get involved. We have some hardworking staff, hardworking everybody.
You're all about now.
So they're very hardworking, and like I said, I'm very proud to be a part of this opportunity for students to excel. So thank you for your time tonight. Anybody else? Mr. Stahl?
Just a we have programs that we share, we're working with other districts, a consortium, if you will, and like, for example, graphic arts, the kids come from different schools in here. Is this a type of program that would work that way for us?
Absolutely. We collaborate in partnership with so many districts around the area, always as far away as Grand Rapids. They all come here, come to Detroit, we go there, Western University. That's the other aspect. All the universities in Michigan, they partner with JROTC as well. So you'll have a connection with each of the university, and you'll see that those kids who are participating in the program have a more linear path to that particular university as well.
I think to clarify this question, just can kids from Fowlerville, Pinckney, or Heartland participate in this program through Brighton area schools?
That's totally up to you.
Totally up to us.
Totally up to you.
Right.
Right.
I believe we have some of our students that go to Howell for the Air Force ROTC. Is that correct, or junior?
I don't think we have any.
We don't have anybody.
None going right now?
Never
Never
had. No, none of the past either.
There was a slight concern that we'd have a competitive edge here in Brighton if you're here tonight. I can say that it's good for everyone to have their programs, and I support all of them.
Absolutely.
And so if our students wanted to go to the Howell, or Howell students wanted to come to our program here in Brighton, obviously I'd be in full support of that. I think it's amazing if you look at this sheet on how many programs we have running. We have 29 programs in our state currently, and those you're directly responsible for.
Yes, sir.
I think we have the right person here tonight. So thank you again.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I look forward to working with you in the future. I have a little package here that goes into more detail than what you already have as well.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you.
Provide that to Dr. Gray.
I will, sir.
Dr. Chesney.
So,
think I have great respect for the junior ROTC. I think we owe, out of that respect, we owe the same diligence to reviewing the program and understanding the program and vetting the program and giving it the due diligence that we have done with our own science program. You know, I completely disagree with the approach of let's approve it now and figure out the details later. I just think that that's the wrong approach to this. I think the correct approach, out of respect to the program, it's just unfair to the program to rush into it. I think we need to have this survey of our students and find out if there really is an interest. I think we need to work with this program, with our curriculum committee, to understand what it is and make sure that it does fit into the program and where it fits and how it fits. And I think, again, out of the utmost respect to this program, we owe it that vetting and that due diligence prior to it moving up to floor action.
Let me ask this follow-up question as a follow-up to that. So if we decided that we really wanted to target the fall of 2019, I mean, we're already obviously in the middle of the school year, but if we were targeting to implement this in the fall of 2019, I mean, what's the time frame that we would need to make a commitment to you to begin that process? I'm assuming it's not tonight or a week from now, or but what just kind of give us some feedback so that we can then factor that into whatever due diligence we may or decide to pursue.
I think reasonably speaking, if you had 6 months out from the time you want to start, that's a reasonable amount of time, because we have systems already in place. It's just a matter of transferring whatever responsibilities I need and systems you need to your area. That's all. It's quite easy. I would also add to what you were saying, Doctor, and that is when you went in, if you do that survey, I would also include in the survey the type of JROTC program the students might want to have. Don't just by default automatically say it's going to be Army, Navy, Marines, or whatever the case may be. Make sure you include in there the option for them, because you'll see from a cross-section that there'll be some wide variety of diversity in terms of what they want to look for in a uniform community.
I think we would welcome you helping us to form those questions if you would be willing to do so.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Glad to do it.
Again, Dr. Chesney, I totally disagree. So, nothing new here in this boardroom. And we'll move forward as I go into my next career. So, I totally disagree. There's no reason to wait. Put on the agenda. And the reason why is that we can do it just like an adult ed class. If it fills, we run it. If it doesn't fill, we don't run it. We have to do we can say as a school that we're going to support this program. If it doesn't fill, we don't do it. Now, are we out anything to do that? Absolutely not. But what we're seriously doing is, and again, I'll respect Dr. Chesney, this program doesn't need development. This program's developed. This program's on the ground running with success stories to no end. So how much further does one need to go? Now it's decisions, do we have the students to fill it? So, it's my opinion still with our board, and I haven't put you down yet, board, not one time, is we should approve it, put it on for future, and then work through the details and fill it. If it doesn't fill, don't run it. Don't invest the hundreds of thousands of dollars it takes to do it unsponsored. If it fills, go at it just like we do everything else. We can fill, we worry about sports, we have a report for this, we have, again, we spent $5 million on a football field, give or take. We're considering spending millions of dollars on a covered football field. Let's get our priorities straight.
The football field, we spent $5 million that one time.
I'm trying to remember. It was $4.5 million total for our football.
I'm still trying to remember which one we spent $4.5
One at the high school.
That was $4.5.
How much was it?
$1 million.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. That was the one Astros, one turf field. So that was one turf field.
I think we've had a lot of good information presented tonight.
Hang on one second. I need to clarify something. I need to so everybody understands. Dr. Gray, how much did the new football field cost?
I'd have to look back.
Approximately.
I'd say it's somewhere between $1 million and $5 million.
Let's remember that the football field at Scranton Middle School cost $1 million. Wait, let's remember that the football field at Scranton Middle School cost $1 million, and we don't have a middle school football team. So back to how we spend taxpayers' money. This is a roughly.
Stock one the other charter schools use that as well.
That's great, they should, but this is an $80 million a year district, correct, give or take, 76 million dollar a year district. We have an opportunity here, and I don't see any loss in it at all to move forward and get serious about boilerplate and look at the opportunities that exist that are created already, that don't have to be recreated. And anything other than that would be a stalling tactic, Dr. Chesney. I think that we're ready to run this community, and I'd be glad to put it on the ballot if necessary at some point. So
I think there's been some very good discussion tonight. I think there's a lot still to consider. I think everybody's making very good points, and we need more time to figure out what makes most sense for our district. I think even you, Colonel, present some great questions of what even service we would orient to. And I don't see harm in us doing our due diligence and taking our time and figuring out, what our students in our community want out of this program. I don't hear anybody at this table suggesting that there's not significant interest in the program, but I do hear still some questions that remain that we need to be able to answer before we can move this forward.
I think it's important, though, for us to continue to keep some attention on this, to make sure that we are doing the work and not just stalling the discussion. I mean, I think that's important for us to do. We've come this far in our discussions. We've got a lot of great information, and it does sound like something that could potentially be a good fit for us, but we should finish the rest of our due diligence before we vote. I mean, I think there are a couple of things that as a board we're probably going to end up voting on, where at this point we would just be voting on continued interest. And I'm sure we could come up with a majority of this board that would say we're still interested, but that doesn't change the fact that we have homework to do before we can actually set up the classrooms, hire the staff, buy the books, buy the uniforms, buy the shoes. We've got a lot of work to do still to make sure that we can do this right, because that's one thing that Brighton is known for. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. So let's finish our homework so that we can do this right.
So this isn't on for future to go to for action at the next meeting.
This is on, and I believe this should remain as for future, and I think at this point, the best approach is for our curriculum team to engage with the Colonel and his folks, and a survey be created, and some of the things that we've talked about tonight, let's further in that space to come back to the board with an appropriate time, and I don't know what that is. I've got to look at the curriculum team to get some guidance on, what their timeline, reasonable timeline would be, to then provide follow-up to the board on the next step.
So that's what I was going to ask. Can we put some parameters around it? We have the director of curriculum here. Is there a possibility that we can guess how long this process may take and when?
I think we need to start with backing up from the 6 months that the Colonel talked about. So
Okay.
the Colonel talked about an actual implementation being about a 6-month process. So my mind went to September 1st, because we start school right around September 1st. And then I'm going to count back 6 months, because I know there's probably a lot of pieces to what the classroom looks like, where to order the uniforms, implemented, laying out the curriculum, mapping the curriculum, which you've done a lot of work of already. So then I would stop at that 6 months and say, okay, from that 6-month mark till today, how much time do we have? And that really would give Ms. Mosier the guidance she needs to have a decision back to the board in relation to the feasibility study.
But I guess my point being is that you said September. Between now and September, something has to happen between soon as that.
That's what I'm saying.
By March.
Correct.
So by March, is that a reasonable time that this would?
Well, my understanding is we'd have to make, if we were going to implement it in next school year, September 1, we'd have to give the green light March 1, and we're moving forward.
Yes.
And we'd give them time, so then from
March
that day
till
coming
today.
forward,
Right.
right, then you set time.
Now we got the gap from March 1st till today as our gap. If you're
During
looking at that.
this time between now and March, you can do your due diligence in terms of surveys and getting some perspective on the community, how they view the whole concept coming about in the little area here. Yeah, anytime do that.
Can I have one additional question too, that oftentimes when we're bringing something new in, we bring it in as a pilot first. Is there such a thing as a pilot before going all in on junior ROTC?
Normally I would say yes, but given the fact this year program is now 102 years old, it's everything's there. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I interrupt you, sir, please.
No, please.
Okay, so I have, truthfully, I have no doubt whatsoever that all of the pieces are in place on your side, on the JROTC side. I think the question for me is, you know, do we, us trying it out on our side just to see, you know, the classroom space and just the mechanics of how it works from our side. I have no doubt that a 102-year-old process is in place and working well.
You know what would help? I'm not much of a podium person. If you allow me to walk with the podium, what would help with that is if you allow maybe your curriculum guru or a couple of your teachers or someone in the school district to go and visit some of the existing programs. And they can actually see on an ongoing daily basis what a day looks like in JROTC, what the logistical requirements and constraints are, what the training, what the curriculum looks like. Those are the that's the kind of value-based information that they need to get in their hands. They can bring that back. They can take videos and they can see, and you can show them, and they can show the community what actually goes on in JROTC. That's going to be the decision maker for you. That's going to be it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So then what I'd like to do tonight is get a board consensus to give our superintendent authorization to move forward with an investigative program to do the research that we discussed tonight. And I'd like that brought back to us at the next board meeting, I'd like to ASAP and move forward on it. And the reason I say that, and there's, again, Dr. Chesney and I agree to disagree many times, and we're getting along fine tonight. So I can share with them, I'm going to run through a couple of them. I had to stand in the doorways in the health occupations class. I had to stand in the doorway of our automotive technical center. I had to stand in the doorway of the early childhood development program and our teacher cadet program. All of those, I stood in the doorway because they're all closed. Now, they're at full capacity with the waiting room only to get in and leading the way in a community that needed all those programs. I believe this man represents a program the same way. Like I said, my father's in the U.S. Army Air Corps. I come from my grandfather's an Army sergeant, World War I, combat soldier. I can tell you that this isn't for everybody, but it goes back to having it there for the students who desire it. And I'm sure I can get everybody's support on that they want to do what the students need in their best interests. And this is another area for our students to excel in. Now, because of the proof, because of its history, because of the affiliation with the United States Army and Brighton area schools, you know, we're talking right now about our affiliation with the ESPN, and it's a wonderful thing about what's going on and what our schools adopted and how we handled this situation with our advanced leadership students, and all the students now understand for our school, correct? So all the students are involved in this, and we're receiving this national recognition. This is a year-long program. It's a different way, though. A lot of our students are going to find an avenue through this that would be right for them. And that's what I've done. And all I've done here as a board member is try to look at that as a mechanic and a technician to see what those things are, and then tighten holes up. And our superintendent for leadership has been exceptional. Off the charts, couldn't ask for, I mean, we brought this stuff to him, we sat in meetings, we had disagreements, we discussed it, he'd sit back a little bit and listen, and if he believed it was the best for the students, he would help us. And he's helped on all of them. I can't say one thing he hasn't done that people brought to him that would be better for the students in this district. This is one of those days. So, if I can get board consensus on this to send our superintendent out and then make a little quicker decision. I don't believe we have to say that we're investing $500,000 today, but if we put it on for action and it's approved that we're going to group, I would like to run to be honest, I'd like to run a pilot next year and put 10 students in it. I can't, you know, and maybe they have to go to another school that already has the program. I can't tell you that yet. But in what I do with engineering and building things that start from scratch and blueprint, and then we assemble it, and next thing you know, we're racing it. This applies in what we're discussing today. It's the same. We will be able to do this, and it'll be the betterment of this community, our students. I just can't see a loss here. And I can't see a loss in a risk. The risk is zero. The taxpayers of this area have funded this school and have treated it to where they want to see it successful. And this is another way that we can show them that we're willing to give it a try. And in risk, in industry, we take risk all the time. And if we don't succeed, we go back to the drawing board and figure out what we did wrong so we succeed. We don't say we're not going to succeed. Sometimes we don't succeed. So I would like to, if the board would do that, I'd appreciate it.
So I think I'm sensing, and anybody that is not in agreement, please speak up, that there is consensus at this board table for Dr. Gray and the administration, Ms. Mosier and her team to further evaluate. We have a timeline established, and if we could perhaps get an update for the next board meeting of just what your initial thoughts are as kind of a timeline moving forward, that would be, that keeps the process moving and gives us an opportunity to know what we don't know.
Okay, so at the next board meeting, I'll ask for it to go for action. That'll work. Okay.
Well, I guess what will be the deliverable in 2 weeks?
From what let me tell you what I heard.
Okay, I'm just asking questions. I'm not really sure.
What I heard is that we need to, again, look out at some of the other programs, maybe work with the colonel in terms of surveys and take a look at interest levels that we possibly could predict at the high school level to see if the program would run. I think the second deliverable we need to do is try to explore which branch, by looking at the 4 different ones, might be the best fit for Brighton. My mind tells me right away, well, you wouldn't replicate the one in Howell.
Right.
Because if you're going to try to draw consortium-wise, you're going to want to have a difference maker, you know, in terms of bringing kids. And then I think we need to nail down, if we're going to pilot it, what that looks like, and then also identify some physical space, because 2 classrooms in that building or 1 large one, you know, will be something to left.
And that information we brought back to us in the next 2 weeks.
Correct.
Yeah, and we have classrooms that are being used for storage. I've seen it.
So we can open those up. Was a part of that too, figuring out how and where it fits in the curriculum, right? That was
Exactly. Okay. That's a bit.
Would we be able to have some initial assessments on the classroom space by the time we have our discussion on the 17th?
Yeah, I mean, we'll walk the building. I know Henry and Gavin and those guys have, I don't know if we have a ton of open classrooms. We have 1 large instruction room that used to be the choir room. That, I don't know what's in there, and then we'll have to look around and predict. Because remember, if you need 2 classrooms, if you have 100 kids, you just generated 2 classrooms. Because if you're running it during the traditional 6-period day, those 100 kids are not taking another class, so it would free up classroom space. So that's how all of our programming works. If you're doing it before or after school in a 0 or 7 hour type period, now you have.
See, this is, I don't mean to cut you off, but I mean, this is the level of detail that's required to run a successful program, and I'm concerned that I don't sense anyone up here that's opposed to exploring this further. It's just, it's unrealistic to be able to just, at a snap of a finger, develop a program and say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and fly by the seat of our pants. I mean,
nobody said that. I never said that.
I'm not
Don't put words in my
I'm not
mouth.
putting any words in anyone's mouth. I am paraphrasing what I'm hearing up here at the table and suggesting that we as a board need to do due diligence and allow our administration to evaluate this program with the colonel, who's a subject matter expert, evaluate what type of space we have, what's the interest in the community, what branch of the military makes the most sense, and give us an opportunity to really put together a real program if that's what we want to do. Otherwise,
Well, Based on the way that we have rolled out other new programs, like the orchestra program, like, some of the other things that we've done here, this is a multi-stage process, and our administration well knows how to do that. So we're at the beginning, and we've got consensus that we want to go to the next step, which is a deeper dive by our administration. And they're going to come back to us, hopefully, at the next board meeting with kind of a status on where that is, what they've been able to figure out with the preliminary review, and what kind of additional work we need to do, right? And then we as a board will decide if we want to keep going.
That's not what I heard, is what's going to be returned back to us in 2 weeks. I heard that there's going to be a survey that will be generated.
I don't think we can do a survey.
I don't either, that's why I'm bringing this
What I'm
up.
saying is that I'd like to, I'm assuming they have samples of surveys that they've used at other districts. I'd like to look at those surveys. I'd like to look at classroom space. I'd like to look at the curricular fit in terms of it. I'd like to look at the instructor piece of it, because that, all our classes, other than some of its subject matter, are drawn by the instructor. So you want a successful program, put a great teacher in front of them. And I'm assuming we'll be able to get that. But yeah, we're going to bring back everything we can possibly bring back in a 2-week period to show. And at that point, you're going to tell us to do more. Tell us to do more. And we'll do. That's what we've done with
So
all
that's
of them.
different than what I thought I heard before.
I don't know if we can send out a survey in less than 2 weeks and get the results and make them.
So I think we've got a plan of action, and let's see let's see what comes back.
And I will help her.
Colonel, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Sure.
All right, item D, appointment of representative to the LESA PAC.
So the PAC is the action committee, that's the parent advisory committee. We've had a representative several times. We actually get this recommendation from the LESA Director of Special Education, Doug Halsey. This person, Katie Boggs, that we're recommending has been it for the last 3 years. Typically, they're a parent that's very involved in the special education programming and through LESA. So they're recommending her for a continued 3 years. Our due diligence has said that there's no issue with that, so we'd recommend her in a couple weeks to be extended through June 30th, 2020.
Any questions or discussion on that? Okay, that closes for future action and moves us into board committee reports, Board of Education bulletins. Any?
I do not have a committee report, I do have an announcement on a flyer. The government relations team, they're traveling to our region. We'll be at the Washington ISD, as you can see on this report. What they're looking for is for us to come with our thoughts and concerns legislatively. And they are asking them, as many board members, to come to this meeting as possible. It helps them to develop the sessions and decide what the priorities are for the legislative sessions. And they're looking for your input. What are your concerns? And what would you like to talk about? I will be at this meeting. If you can't make it, you have something you want me to speak on your behalf, I'm more than happy to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Kevin?
A short time ago, I had asked Dr. Ray to look into what our state laws were according to if we could have one superintendent per county. I don't know if he was able to find anything out on that yet.
I understand that's a different model, like in some other states in terms of that. So
Are there any laws that prohibit it?
I think so.
I talked to our state senator, Joe Hume, specifically regarding that. He believed there's no statute or laws that apply. I haven't heard back from him on the issue, but I did ask him specifically. And I would like a little bigger vision for our school board and consideration in the future that this county would run under one superintendent, and that the superintendent would have assistants in each school. And the purpose behind that is to get ourselves organized a little better. And there's things on the ballot that concern me in this election coming up when it comes to the, I'll just say what it is, this issue of passing a marijuana law, which I don't support. But it's going to change how schools, we already have certain things we deal with every day. And I believe organized a little better, we could maybe have a better and safer environment for our students for the long haul. And it's been shot down in prior years. People say, well, there's legislation, you can't do that, you can't have one superintendent. Well, that's not true, what I tell. So that's the direction I'm going. I'd like to investigate the idea for our county, and I've talked to the Board of Commissioners at the county level, which have no control over education. Is that correct, Dr. Ray? Okay, but I do have their support as far as the idea and the concept, and I believe we can make a big difference. We have situations in our county where our school has opportunities, but a school only a few miles from our school doesn't have the same opportunities. The students don't have the same chance that our students have. And for me, I can't support that happening and continue to happen under my watch. So I'm not sure how we do it. Just like we talked about as a technician that I am, I've started with stuff that didn't have any assembly yet. You had to draw a print, make it, manufacture it, and race it. This is maybe a similar startup because, well, it hasn't been done in Michigan. Is that correct, Dr. Ray? Is there any district out of the 83? You have 83 counties in Michigan.
No, the biggest one would be in some of the smaller areas. There are shared superintendencies between two districts. That's what I've seen.
Between two school districts? Okay.
There, and a while ago, there was one between that shared two ISDs.
And again, that was done for cost savings, I assume?
I don't.
Well, my idea wouldn't be about cost savings necessarily, being about more a structure that would be more organized and to benefit students. And again, if our students can do this, the student 2 miles from us should be able to do the same thing or have the same opportunity. And I know as the taxpayers, as I'm a taxpayer, but as the ones who I represent, they're assuming that they're getting all the same opportunities. There's a lot of assumptions. People that don't have kids in school now, they're assuming that this is going on and that's going on, the same thing's happening. We know by record that's not true. So I'd like the board to be open-minded to that. And obviously I would support my superintendent, our superintendent, to run the whole thing. And again, if he wanted to. And I don't know what the next step is, Dr. Gray, what's my next step on getting that accomplished?
Yeah, it's not going to be around that long.
I know, that's fine. But yeah, you think it would take a long time? It would have to be on the ballot?
I have no idea. I'd have to explore that.
Oh, I have no idea. It means that we can find out.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to ask them, is that we find out and what the procedures would be. Should this community and this county desire that to happen, I'd suggest it to go on the ballot and become a ballot for Livingston County, just like we tried to pass a countywide millage at one time. This would be a countywide ballot initiative to determine who one superintendent. That's my suggestion. I'd like to see if that's possible, and then I'll go from there. I don't want to be going down any things. If there's legal protection, we can't do this or can't do that. I can waste my time. I have to change the rules in Lansing first. That's another program. If the rules don't have to be changed, then how would that be accomplished if you had someone wanted to accomplish it? Is that fair to ask?
If that's what the board wants me to do.
Well, that's up to the board if they may have heard this before. This is a new one.
Are you suggesting, would this be the elimination of all but one superintendent of the?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be, and it would be a combined school board for the whole county, where each district would have representatives on a school board who would then represent their district with one superintendent. So a little bit of change, wouldn't it be? One director of curriculum, one superintendent, and you'd have a curriculum that applied to all students countywide.
Any other board bulletins?
Yeah, I've got just a couple of points.
Dr. Gissinger, do you have those numbers in front of you, or do I?
Thank you, too.
Okay, so I asked Dr. Gistinger when we had this very successful audit at our last meeting, Dr. Gistinger put together our variance from budgeted to actual over the past 5 years. And I don't know if you remember, but the auditor said that 5% or less is considered good, and our average for the last 5 years has been 0.45%. So we are one-tenth or 1,000 times better than what is considered good, which is just absolutely insane. So 5% is considered good, our average is less than 0.5%. So congratulations to Dr. Gestinger for successfully managing the budget on that. Any questions about that? I just think that's outstanding.
Yeah, I have one.
First.
I guess number one, that 5% I believe is the industry standard. And number two, I believe when you have an assistant superintendent that makes $185,000 a year, he's also a CPA with all the benefits that go along. I would expect nothing less than what that margin of error is right now, to be honest with you, because that's what we're expecting as the job that should be done. So, thank you.
I think that a better phrase that it was, I think the margin of error was a half of 1%. Less than that. It was 5. How much was it, Dr. Gessner?
I didn't understand the
What's your margin of error? Was like in the 0, 0. It was like all the way to the right, so I think we misstated that.
Well, no, he's right. He
Is
gets
it?
the numbers. Yeah,
Yep.
it's like a 0.24, like not even a whole %.
Yeah, that's pretty darn good over all these years, especially with the differences. I have a question related to if we did have a countywide superintendent and superintendent of finance like yourself run it. Is it possible for you to run 5 school districts with assistant superintendents in each district?
Sure.
Right. And then if you looked at a total amount of dollars in the county, if our budget's $75 million, that means Howell's has got to be like $85 million, somewhere in there. And so in looking at numbers, what is it? Yeah. So we have $300 million to look after our taxpayers' money, and I would really like to have someone like yourself running that. If that margin of error and that accuracy, and I'd be glad to pay you.
More than 185,000.
Probably. But the idea is to hold those kind of numbers and have that kind of talent at the top works. And I'm in a belief system that it can be done. And I think it comes down, like I said, safety, security, opportunities for our children. I think it's going to become a necessity to everybody to communicate. And that would bring in, we talk about we talk about liaison officers in our high schools, having them tie together so they're all knowing and talking to each other, knowing what's going on in this school, this school, this school, and communicating openly for the effect. Like I said, it sounds like we call it a dream sheet business, because it is, but without one, you don't go anywhere. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gissner. Anything else, Dr. Chisholm?
Just that there will be no policy and finance committee meeting on the 16th of October because the next night we have the 3-hour board workshop, and then later on that week we have the ESPN event. So I figured it was prudent to cancel that meeting.
Why don't we reschedule and do it tonight? When the board closes, we can finish and do it right now.
I'm not going to.
All right. Mr. Blumhouse, Travis?
I'm also in the committee, and I would have my vote be not to have a meeting.
I'm on that committee, so that's 2. So I guess you guys are going to go home then.
One other item I have, and just as a follow-up, the student code of conduct for the non-athletes.
Yeah, we planned on either the last meeting in October or the first one in November. They're almost finished.
Okay.
We talked about that about a week.
Thank you. Okay. Right, anything else? All right, that brings us to second call to the public. If anyone wishes to address the board in second call, please step to the podium. Same rules apply. Seeing none, that'll close second call to the public. Our next meeting is a board workshop on Wednesday, October 17th, 2018 at 6 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.